Welcome back to Montessori Thrive's Town Hall. We do these every Thursday during the school year, and we are so happy to have Catherine Massie and Barbara Luborsky here today. They are working with MMPI, Montessori Medical Partnership for Inclusion. We are so happy to have them here. This looks like an intimate gathering today, so please feel free to unmute if you have any questions or put anything in the chat. And with that, I will give it over to Catherine and Barbara.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you for coming. I'm going to just share my screen here and we'll get started. Give me 1 second. Our presentation today is Building Bridges to Belonging. Our organization is devoted to the inclusion of more children in Montessori settings, and particularly children with more diverse needs. So what we've discovered is that we have to find ways to bring those children along, that for some of them, the Montessori materials and Montessori classroom, as it exists for the most part, is sort of too far. So they need a bridge to help them get there. I'll turn it over to Catherine, and she'll tell you a little bit about our agenda for today's talk.
All right, so we're so glad you joined us. We have I think it's about a half-hour presentation, and then we'll have a time to answer questions and talk with you more. We'll start with a brief overview of our mission and vision and what we have been working toward through our organization, Montessori Medical Partnership for Inclusion. We will tell you some of the key areas of impact of our work, and then we will kind of shift a little and look at why is inclusion so challenging, and so what is going on currently in the world and in the United States that present difficulties. And then we'll wrap up with some steps that you can take. And of course, we always like to end with some Montessori quotes that inspire us in our work. Okay, so our mission and vision. Our mission is helping Montessori schools and programs around the world increase their capacity for successful and developmental inclusion. So Barbara and I got together about, 15 15 years or more ago. And we had this shared interest in Montessori as the most wonderful place for children who had a variety of challenges and were not always successful in a traditional setting. And so we started doing work together and talking about what these children might need to be more successful. And then we decided we need to have an organization that is devoted just to this. And so our organization is about serving you all. It's about serving the Montessori community, guides, administrators, parents, the whole community, how we can utilize Montessori education as the most awesome place for all children. So, and our work is founded on the base of our work is starting from a high quality implementation of Montessori education. So, it's not that we're saying that we're going to replace the Montessori method and materials that you know. That is the foundation that we are going to build bridges for children who are having trouble accessing the method and materials as they are. So it's not about, some people get worried, especially teachers, about bringing in a bunch of non-Montessori stuff into a Montessori classroom. It's not about that. It's about realizing the inherent value of what you already have and leveraging current developmental scientific knowledge to build these bridges, to build supports, to build modifications, to build enhancements. Sometimes we do have to bring in additional materials in order to provide that stepping stone so that the child can begin what's in the albums. But we really, as Montessorians, we found we really need to start looking at this more as, reverse engineering in a sense, because Dr. Montessori started for 10 years. She worked with kids with disabilities only. So she started, that's why it's so fabulous for inclusion, is that the entire method was born out of special education. So her first school was not the first Casa dei Bambini in 1907. It was actually the Orthophonic School that she opened 10 years earlier in 1897 in Rome. And that was just for children who were severely disabled or had been expelled from the public schools. So we're going to talk to you about some of the ways we've been collaborating with people and working to bring this information out to everyone to help them begin their journey to build bridges.
I'm going to talk to you for just a moment about our vision. Our vision is Montessori and medicine working together to include more children. So in our organization, Montessori Medical Partnership for Inclusion, our partnership is Catherine, who is a Montessorian and also trained as a special education teacher, and so many other things, Orton Gillingham, and the Montessori therapy training she has taken. And in any event, she's a super Montessorian. And I'm an occupational therapist, so I'm sort of the medical side of things. And our goal is to work together to be able to include more children. Um, it is really true that to make this vision a reality, we have to build bridges, and it requires a lot of bridges. You need therapists, you need parent involvement. Um, you have to bring everybody to the table. The children are complicated, and the environment is complicated, and the culture of the classroom is complicated. All of the adults have to work to nurture a culture of inclusion. The adults also need to assist the children in recognizing their role in that culture. A lot of times when we are talking to school, doing trainings at schools, it seems like people forget one of Dr. Montessori's sort of, I think, big, wonderful ideas is the peer piece. So when the children know each other as people, they aren't thinking about, well, this kid is different. This kid is special. It sort of is to them like some people wear glasses and some people don't. Um, and so then they can begin to take on a role of maybe supporting the child with certain needs. But what begins to happen is then, the child with the needs will then find some ways in which he or she excels, and then they can be the leader in a different pairing with a different child. And that really builds a bridge for bringing those kids into the Montessori culture and the Montessori classroom. So, what is needed to make inclusion work? We have been on the journey of looking for ways to provide Montessorians with the information and expert inputs to learn what they need to know to make inclusion really work in a Montessori environment. Welcoming these children into our classrooms can feel daunting, but this is really only a problem when teachers are not adequately prepared or supported. This talk may end up sounding like an MMPI infomercial, rah, 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 but really, we're dedicated to helping teachers and administrators learn more about how to serve children with more diverse needs. And this is, we are trying to provide whatever those supports are that you might need. So if you think of something that we're not talking about, please let us know.
Okay, so when we started, as I mentioned earlier, started getting to know each other and talking about, well, what exists? What models are there? Who are the experts? I had been doing research around the world, trying to find as much information as I could about schools and programs that really address this Montessori being used for inclusion. Because we all, all Montessorians, I think, know from the history that it contains aspects that are fabulous for children with additional needs. So one of the things we thought when we were working together was it would be great if all of these people, they were organizations, schools around the world who are doing fabulous scientific and what we call scientific and medical pedagogy to make this workable. But none of them knew about each other. And so for years I would go around and, with my little computer and show them, oh, well, do you know about this school? They're doing this work. And do you know about that school? And really all around the world. And so we thought it would be fabulous if we created one place, a network worldwide for people to connect and work together. So one big aspect that we started early on, we were focusing on providing courses and professional development specific to inclusion in Montessori. And so I had learned when I was doing my training in Bergamo, I had learned about this project of Mario Montessori, the son of Dr. Montessori, with the world famous developmental pediatrician, Professor Dr. Theodor Hellbrugge. And the project was in Munich. And that was only a 4-hour train trip over the Alps, really pretty. So I thought, wouldn't that be great if I did one of my observation weeks there? So that's what I did. And I learned about their work, that it went back like 50 years. They opened the first inclusion by design Montessori school in Munich in 1968. And so it was, they started this pioneering work so long ago and had worked on it so long and developed it and created new roles like the Montessori therapy. So they had, in a lot of ways, figured out how to support these children and how to leverage the best parts of Montessori for an inclusive social environment and developmental. So we partnered with them. So whenever we find these great people and experts, we, try to find a way to get their word out. And we had their first course was in person pre-COVID in 2019 in Milwaukee in a public Montessori charter school. And it was fabulous. We brought these European trainers over. We provided interpreters. And so then after that, unfortunately, COVID hit. So our next course was online. And then we saw a huge expansion in accessibility to our course. So, and I'll tell you, I'm going to just list the courses now. But so we realized that because of the internet and we have great technical support, that we could really get these amazing people and this information that Montessorians needed so much, we could get that to people in a very easy, efficient, accessible way. So we had developed a course on our own, understanding interventions and therapies in Montessori settings, and then realized we had a number of Montessori administrators who reached out and said, well, I don't have a Montessori diploma, but I really want to go to the Foundations of Montessori Inclusion course. And So we created an administrator's track, and which developed into our course, Leading Inclusive Montessori Schools for Administrators. Barbara?
And the other thing that we did was in 2018, right before the first FMIE course in 2019, was we opened a website, montessoriForInclusion.org. And on that website, if we have time, I'll show you a little bit of it later on, but we are wanting to include, and we include a lot of information about Montessori inclusion events, conferences, and professional development opportunities, resources for inclusion. And we also have country pages where we create a page for a specific country, and then we have connections like an ambassador who is there in that country and sort of providing information to put on the site, so that they're trying to focus on spreading this information within their own countries. Our course offerings are diverse in terms of the offerings and the target audiences. They're designed for educators, medical professionals, therapists, and families to meet the unique needs of these groups as they support more children in Montessori environments. We have both introductory courses and courses that provide more in-depth, advanced content. It's a flexible and accessible format, so you can do a balance of live online meetings with asynchronous material. And we've been finding more and more call for asynchronous, so that people, part of it has to do with if they're on the other side of the world and we're doing something live, it might be 2 in the afternoon for us, but it's 2 in the morning for them. So some of it was sort of out of the necessity of that, the time zones, but some of it is just that people are busy and they have full lives. And so some of them wanted to be looking at material at 11 o'clock at night. So there's flexibility to do that. We really focus on creating adaptations and supports that allow access to Montessori education for every child. We have cutting edge programming and research-driven updates. So we try to keep our ear to the ground in this field and in all these other ancillary areas, and keep bringing in more information and ideas to help smooth the way for inclusion of more children. And we are also partnering with Loyola University of Maryland to provide professional development units, CEUs, for the courses. They are available to you at the end of each course.
Okay, so just a little more detail about some of our course offerings. The Foundations of Montessori Inclusion courses, those were developed in collaboration with the leading Montessori inclusion experts in Europe, Joachim Datke and his wonderful team of medical professionals and inclusion pedagogues and Montessori therapists. So they have decades of experience of real live working in inclusive environments, not to mention clinics and other medical settings. So we started out with the Foundations of Montessori Inclusion, the early intervention. So that includes birth to 6 or 7 years old. Then we offered another course, which was for the elementary ages, 6 to 12. We found that the medical and psychological lectures that are basically the same, the background, the medical information needed on development. So now we run them simultaneously, and we do breakouts for the early intervention versus the elementary teachers. They have specific information to their age group on the pedagogy. So we include, there's a strong background in developmental medicine, as well as developmental psychology. also in the context of different disability areas. When we went online, we found that it's hard to do so much intensive lectures, like 80 hours over 2 weeks was the first course. So we spread it out now over 10 or 11 months. And so we focus, like each month we'll focus on a different disability area. And the class will run for one Saturday for a month through the academic year. And we found that that's really doable for most educators. And about half of the content is practical inclusion strategies taught by Montessori inclusion teachers and Montessori therapists who've been making adaptations and modifications again for decades. So that's that one. Barbara, we'll share with you
So
about the
the
next
course
one.
that we developed is Understanding Interventions and Therapies in a Montessori Setting. And this is a three-part course that provides essential information to prepare participants to support children with sensory motor delays, dyslexia and related learning challenges, and autism. This unique course provides participants with lots of background medical information about these three common areas of need for children, as well as a framework for thinking about how to adapt and modify lessons and materials to develop a multitude of strategies for individualized supports.
Okay, so our next one is Leading Inclusive Montessori School LIMS. This was sort of developed from a need in the community that reached out to us and said, "Hey, we need something for us, for the administrators." And we'd also heard from a lot of our teachers who'd been attending our courses that, well, they took the course and they knew what they needed to do, but nobody else in the school really understood that vision, and they really needed for the administrators to have this idea of building these partnerships, building these bridges, and what that meant, and so that they could be resourced, because it really is a whole school project, a whole school vision. So, we designed a course just for administrators, preparing the staff. How does the different staff members need to be prepared? How do the environments need to be prepared? And then how do you build your teams and bring in the specific supports and interventions that the children who are in your classrooms need? And then we look at successful leadership and inclusive schools in general. So we use a textbook that is from, the broader traditional education, and look at, different strategies that have been successful and different characteristics that not just in Montessori, but in all inclusive school environments. These are building blocks to make a successful program. Then we have, throughout this program, we have the administrators design and develop their own 5-year strategic plan for inclusion. So based on their needs, their population of students, their resources, and what they have available, how do they want to prioritize? Where are they going to start first? And then develop that over 5 years. And we even heard from somebody in Canada that their government had just passed a law in education saying that all schools had to come up with a 5-year inclusion plan. And I thought, yes, it's a great idea. Okay, so some of the key areas of impact. So we've been working for a number of years now, and some of the things where we feel like we've really made an impact in Montessori education and how people think about children with more diverse developmental and learning needs. One of them that I haven't mentioned yet is we partnered with AMI USA and Dalia Vello, a psychologist who's also Montessori trained, in doing a research project on the ASQ developmental screening tool. So the ASQ, Ages and Stages Questionnaire, is one of the leading, it's probably one of the top 5 developmental screeners, offered by the medical community. And she found that particularly well suited for Montessori schools and had done a 5-year project in Oregon, getting the schools on board. So AMI USA decided to fund a research project, and we helped them and supported them through that. And then we offered this course an additional time. So this idea of developmental screening and the importance of it was really, I think, a fabulous eye-opener for Montessorians. And definitely it's part of the Hellbrugger work, inclusion work in Munich, because he was one of the initial pioneers of the whole idea of developmental screening. So another area is in training educators and healthcare professionals. So we've been looking at not just working with Montessori teachers, but working our course is available to the classroom assistants, to other support professionals, to reading specialists, other interventionists, but also we've been looking at, what do therapists and specialists who come into the Montessori classroom and they're not Montessori trained, what do they need to know? How do they need to be prepared to work really effectively in a Montessori environment? And one of those pieces that's just at the very beginning in the United States, everywhere outside of Germany, is called Montessori therapy. So we noticed that a lot of these experts, inclusion experts in Europe, almost all of them have taken the Montessori therapy training in addition to being Montessori trained and medically trained. And so we thought, wow, that's something that Montessori really needs to be more inclusive. We really need these people to have this additional medical expertise and also have Montessori training, and so to really understand how to make it work well. Dr. Montessori herself spent her entire life trying to implement this. She called it the White Cross, and she had this idea, but couldn't get anybody to buy into it. She wanted Montessori teachers to have additional like nursing training or medical training so that they could support children from war-ravaged countries who were migrants, who were fleeing conflict, who were survivors of natural disasters like earthquakes and volcanoes and all this type of thing. That was her idea. And so through the inclusion work of Dr. Theodor Hellbrugger, he actually encouraged, because the staff realized we need something else, this is a great resource. And so MMPI organized the first English translation of this training, and we invested about $40,000 of our money from our company and interpretation into English. So it was a 2-year course. We had 14 people, 11 of them graduated with their Montessori therapy diploma. So that was a big gift to the Montessori world, because now they were so excited by the international group that we brought and by how wonderful and enthusiastic people were. Their next course is going to be even more accessible, because I had to get up at 2 a.m. and do 8 hours of like medical lectures at 2 a.m. It was rough. So they're making it much more accessible, and you're able to do it on your own time. They're going to pre-record the lectures. So, and then community, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll just mention the other two. In resource development, Barbara's going to talk a little bit more about the resources and our outreaches through our website. She'll talk more with you about those things.
So just to give you a little picture how we're doing with our goal of increasing capacity, um, we have a pretty good estimate that we have trained more than 1,000 people since our first course, including the first course in 2019. We have 3,500 plus members and followers on our website. We've trained more than 70 school administrators, and we've had participants from 6 continents. We have, through the ASQ training that we did actually twice, once with Dr. Pesselwhite, who was the researcher, with a group that were part of the research data gathering. And then we had the course a second time. So we've introduced a lot of Montessori schools to the ASQ and enhanced their understanding of the value of doing something like that, having a universal screening. We've helped a lot of OTs learn how to work in Montessori settings. And we're really trying to develop the international reach through our country pages. So I wanted to just give you a very brief look at the website, the resources and international community. There's a wealth of resources for inclusion on our site. I'm going to show you a few of them in a second. And they provide tailored support that respects variations in educational and medical systems worldwide with cross-cultural knowledge sharing. We want to promote an exchange of knowledge and success stories across different cultures globally. And in addition, we want to highlight localized initiatives as well. So I think I'm going to just stop sharing super quick, and then I will share my website. So this is our Australia page, for example. And here's our delegate, Lucette Van Summer Boyd. And we have some news from Australia and some information about a study that's looking for parents of children with pandas, and then some specific resources. So there's trainings and networking opportunities. Now, this is our course that actually ended in November, but there's some quotes from people who took the course. And then these are some Australian-based resources, webinars that people can go and watch, some information and advice from the Australian Disability Network, Australian Parenting website, and Department of Social Services. And then in the resources tab, we have hot topics. I'm not sold on all of these titles. This is a new initiative that I've been working on, which is a community of practice with the occupational therapists of Ghana, because occupational therapy as a field is quite new in Ghana, and they have about 75 OTs for a country with 21 million people. And so we are also working on introducing them to Montessori. Several of the people who are part of this on the Ghana side are running inclusive Montessori schools, which is incredible. But anyway, so that's kind of what's here. These are the Montessori therapy training graduates. And some other things. There's an ebook that I wrote. You can go there and download that if you want. Here's another one on interoception. And then some happenings. This is the AMI USA position statement, which you can click and read the whole thing. We're also going to give you the link. So anyway, there we go. That is basically what's here on the home page. Our mission and vision, a wonderful Dr. Montessori quote, And then more information about the courses if you lose your links from this talk. This is the picture from our first 2019 live cohort. That was super fun. So anyway, that gives you a little idea of, I didn't even show you, we have articles, we have videos, but there's a lot to see there. Okay, let me just
Thank you,
go to
Barbara.
this.
You've got your notes there. Your notes are showing?
All right. Sorry, I have to do this again, I think. To start the slideshow over, I believe. Sorry. I'm such a tech wizard, you know?
Yes, you are. She designs the website. She puts things up. She's a website whiz.
Let's see. First, I have to find my way back to you guys. There you are. Okay.
Okay, so while Barbara's getting that up, we're going to talk next about current challenges. Why is inclusion so challenging? And despite the promise and the hope and promise of Montessori inclusion has been proven in various places around the world, getting started and moving forward can be a daunting process. So I think it's good to think about some of the reasons why it's so challenging in Montessori education. And then, if these are some great things to think about and talk about and ask questions about in a few minutes when we're done. So, you probably know from the news and, following different families in your own environment that the disability prevalences are actually continuing to increase. They've been increasing for a couple of decades. In particular, ADHD and autism continue to ramp up. And so it is a real thing. We are seeing more and more kids with these disabilities. If you go to the conferences where they talk about reasons, because everybody wants to know why, the best they can do is say, well, we believe it's about 50% genetic and about 50% environmental. So there's something that's happening between, the genes and the environment that is causing this increase. So it is a real thing. The other thing that in Montessori we're finding is that parents are recognizing that Montessori looks like a better place for their kids, friendlier place for their children who, seem to march to a different drum, have little different needs. Maybe they don't quite understand what those needs are, but we are seeing loads and loads of parents who are coming to Montessori and wanting their children to be served there because they just have this intuition. And I believe that they're absolutely correct, provided the staff know how to serve them. And so that's where our organization steps in, and we're trying to help with that. So, with kids, when you have a larger and larger percentage of kids who are coming in with additional needs, the Montessorians that we hear from around the world, they're really being overwhelmed because they feel like that they want to serve these children, but they don't feel like they exactly know how to make it work with the tools they have. Sometimes they experience that specialists coming in is very disruptive, and that is a real thing. And that's a key part of this collaborative model is that both the therapist and the Montessorians need to know each other's business. They need to know what each of them are focusing on, what each other are focusing on, so that they can collaborate and then truly come up with integrated solutions that help the child. And of course, the goal is the child having full access, like all the other children, to the amazing Montessori methods and materials. We want them to get there, but so many are just not able to. And so the other piece that we have found and is reflected in our organization's name is the medical and psychology insights to children who have these developmental differences and different developmental needs. If you really need to serve a child well, you really need to understand what their needs are. If you have a child with dyslexia, and there's 15 to 20% of all kids have that, you need to know that their brains work different. Their brains process information differently. How do you help them with their different brains learn using the Montessori method, but needing to know, needing additional support, additional intervention? And how do you bring those two together in an optimal way? So that's the missing piece. And the word medical has been kind of a scary word for a lot of people, we have found when they first get started in this work. But once you bring in the professionals into your school, you get to know, the teachers get to know them, the parents get to know them. All of that fear goes down, and then it's win-win for everybody because they bring in these missing pieces that can help solve the challenges of including the child and helping them adapt and make the steps and progress they need to be successful in Montessori. It's not just about opening doors and letting, more kids with needs in. We have to serve them to reach their optimum the same way we serve children who are more typically developing. And then the last part, is that we don't live in an inclusive world. So unless we have family members who had disabilities and we can really understand, what it's like to be in a world where your needs are not reflected in how the world is built. And, or, we have more and more Montessori guides who have disabilities themselves, and they come and share with us about, how different things, how they react to different things in the Montessori environment and in the kid, how to help the kids and to give more insight into, how the child feels when they're not able to do something that the adults are expecting them to do and what we can do to support them. So the inclusive world, these schools you go and you visit the really great models of inclusive schools, and it just, you want that then. They're so amazing. But we don't know how to get there. It's really challenging. And then on top of that, we had made a lot of progress with this. And then, I'm not going to get into too much into the politics of the current environment, but with DEI now basically illegal, it really makes it hard to keep focusing on a way. And so we actually have to think of different ways of describing our work besides inclusion. So one of those words that we hear from the disability community is belonging. So, and that sounds great, building bridges to belonging. Belonging, inclusion, everybody has the right in the United States, everybody has the legal right under the ADA to be included. And so I think that we're all on board that we want that to happen, but it is challenging. And we are having so many kids, mostly because there's not many schools that are fully inclusive. So that means they tend to congregate in particular schools that are doing really well. So what we'd like is for all Montessori schools to understand how to make their programs work and bring in the resources and supports so that all the kids are separate, can go to the local school in a way that reflects the school community reflects the community in general. So that's the ultimate goal. All right.
Okay, so I think we're going to have to stop and see if you guys have any questions, but we did want to just provide you with a few steps you can take right now, like joining MMPI, maybe plan to take an MMPI course, but prepare for inclusion or prepare to expand and deepen inclusion work that you may already be doing. Um, you need to be preparing for each child's needs. You need to partner with parents. Parents have so much information about their children and they know them so well that if you're having an issue with a particular child and a particular problem, the first place to go is to the parents and see what ideas they have about how to handle it, how to solve it. It's really important that you keep working to build your child support team. You may find that you have a child who needs a nutritionist. I don't know, something that's maybe a little more obscure. That might not be like the first person you think of that, oh, I need a nutritionist on my team. But so a kid who has maybe a metabolic disorder. Um, so so then you might have to reach out and find someone. And so I just encourage you to keep reaching out and thinking about different people to bring into your school to provide the knowledge that you need for each and every child. It's very hard for everyone, particularly for administrators, to make time for collaboration. It's hard for teachers. But if everybody works together and thinks about a solution, you'll be able to come up with some time, hopefully an hour a week. Or you might have smaller teams. Some schools have smaller teams that meet, and then it's easier for them to talk about the few kids that they're sort of responsible for. And please share your successes with others so that your colleagues around the country and around the world will see what you're doing. So is that okay with you, Catherine, if we just stop for a minute and take some questions? Because I think we're
Yes.
quite a ways over the 30-minute mark. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I have a couple of comments and questions, please,
Yeah,
if I can.
absolutely.
One thing I have observed over the years, not just in our school, but in general, is that most of our teachers, if not all, are not prepared to deal with children with with issues, learning issues, or what you call neurodivergent children.
Mhm. Yes.
So that's one observation. Because in the training and all that, obviously they don't get into all of these things when they go through this. So that's second thing is that because of that, our administrative staff, the admission staff, when they are in the process of enrolling children and they have any semblance the child may not be, maybe having some issues, they essentially just push them away and say, okay, let's just not deal with it. So we basically try our best to get quote unquote normal children, whatever that means, right? So that's that. So we're basically missing a big and a very useful group of children that I think we could serve well. So, when we find that some of our children are maybe having some issues, then we do recommend that they get professional therapy. But that is done outside the classroom while the teachers keep, quote unquote, teaching the same normal way that they would teach everybody else. So that is never brought inside the classroom. It is done outside. So that's the environment in which we are living in at the moment.
Yes.
I
I
think
think
what you guys are offering is just amazing. Is just very, very commendable. The question I had is that do you require that for us to be able to get some of the teachers trained uh, in this area through your courses? Do the administrative staff have to be trained first? And if
no.
that's not possible, can we just go and And essentially, I mean, one thing I believe, and maybe tell me if it's wrong or not, I don't believe that something like this should be just confined to a single teacher in the whole classroom, because then she will feel lost. Nobody will understand them. It should be done as a kind of, for example, if you're trying to do something at the primary level, I would like all the primary teachers to really take this course so that they can share all that experience and knowledge and do it in a cohesive fashion. So if that is possible through a course or a webinar, uh, do you have something that I can share with the teachers that explains, I mean, again, not a long thesis, but like maybe a couple of pages of some bullet points saying, why is it crucial for you to be able to effectively deal with, and first of all, I mean, uh, the world is not all normal children. I mean, children come in all flavors, all issues, all challenges. And I think I always felt that in Montessori schools should embrace them like Maria Montessori did and not push them away. And today that's what is
Right.
happening. We're pushing them away. Okay, which is really
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah. So,
So, is
yeah,
there anything? Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead, Kathy.
yeah, I feel your pain, and for many Montessori, I think you're speaking for a vast number of Montessori programs who do feel like they have to cherry pick their waiting lists, and which,
Right.
if you're in the United States, is illegal. Um,
Yep.
there's schools who do that have gotten in trouble. Montessori schools have had charges brought against them for doing that. So
Well,
that's
there are ways to get around it, Catherine. I mean,
there.
unfortunately.
Right.
Even the
And
public schools that
Yeah,
find
yeah,
ways
yeah,
to get
yeah.
around it.
I
yeah,
understand.
and
I
the
understand.
issue that you've spoken to, that um, your teachers don't have the training and the supports that they need, that's real.
Right.
And so you don't want to, put together a class that you just can see that it's going to explode or
Right.
implode or whatever, because it's just going to be too much without the
Then,
right supports. And this, Catherine and I see this as a necessity for a really sort of monumental culture shift in the Montessori, world. And we've been like two little Sisyphus gals, pushing this
yeah,
boulder up the hill for the last like 12, 15 years.
right.
And we will keep going, and we're trying to pull some younger people in. Don't tell anybody, but like we're getting old, and we want to have some, younger folks to kind of to move it forward. But and we are making headway. Like with the AMI USA, statement is just phenomenal. It's just such a magnificent document. You must read it. But I hear your question too about, could we give your teachers some, you know, condensed little some bullets about why this is a good idea. And it's
Right.
very challenging. It's very challenging. When you start a business and the marketing people say, well, explain your business and, give me the elevator pitch. You have
Right.
45 seconds while you're traveling in the elevator. And it's
Right.
like this, what we just talked to you about today is like so surfacey, right? You
Yes.
do have, I think, probably quite a good idea what we're working on. But it's really hard then to sort of, you know, distill it down even more and convince a teacher maybe who's had already maybe a bad experience in a classroom with a kid that was so difficult that disrupted everything, and she didn't have any support and probably felt totally inadequate. So possibly directing them to our website. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's a reasonable idea that we could put something like that together.
I mean, I
Yeah.
when I went through them, when as you were going through the presentation, there are a few bullet items that, like, you have one slide on challenges, which very says why it is important that we have some of these awareness and knowledge. So, if there are, like, my take is this. I mean, when I go to our teachers, whether it's primary or elementary level, I don't want to feel that I'm pushing them to something that, I mean, without the knowledge, they will kind of back off. But I want them to say, okay, here are the three things why I think is important for you to know and have this kind of knowledge to make your classroom environment a pleasant and a healthy environment for all the children that you support. And so if I can get that, then that's the first step. After that, I can motivate them to go ahead to your website, learn more about it, and then say, okay, guys, are you ready for these courses? Just go forward. So
Right.
I'm just throwing out an idea. I do not know whether or not feasible or not, but my task is that I would like to motivate these teachers and not coerce them into taking, which maybe they can become converted later on, but it'll be a very unpleasant journey for the administrator to really
Yeah.
embark on.
Yeah, so that I also wanted to speak to what you said about having the entire level, age level to take the training together. We've had a lot of schools do that. But we've also had the other way where one teacher came and took it and then got her colleagues, her co-teachers so excited that she had them all come back. So we've had schools sending people over and over until they get everybody trained. And our course, Understanding Interventions and Therapies, is open to everybody. You don't have to have a Montessori diploma in order to go, whereas the Foundations of Montessori Inclusion by our European colleagues, they require a Montessori diploma at the level or certificate at the level of the course. So but our course it's different. It's a really nice partner course. It really does a deep dive into three different disability areas, um, sensory motor, dyslexia, and autism, and looks at how does the teacher work with the therapist? What is the therapist bringing to the table? So one of the biggest things that Barbara found a barrier for us initially and in people's understanding why medical? We don't need medical. Why do you need medical in Montessori besides the fact that Dr. Montessori was a medical doctor? Um, anyway, so we got so much pushback, and it boils down to you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know until I had met Barbara, and she was working in my school when I was head of school. And, she could walk into a classroom, and because she's trained as a developmental occupational therapist, she could see things that, we just don't even know to look at. And we don't understand what it means for a child's development. So a child is picking up a chair and throwing it. Well, what happened right before that? Barbara would say, well, of course he's throwing a chair because the adult was expecting him to do something that he is not able to do yet. And, just to be able to translate and understand, knowing what the developmental differences are to a child, how they experience the world. We spend a lot of time on trying to bring in the perspective of the person, the adult and the children who have a developmental difference. What is it like? Why do we have to be so concerned with social emotional and their the impact of their disability or difference on them, and how that brings all these other secondary consequences. So it really is, important to have people understand the medical part, because you don't even know all the things that, like in autism interventionists, what they've been trained and the expertise they bring in behavior. I had a situation in my school where one year we had three three autism interventionists working with different kids at one time because it was so fabulous. The teachers were really worried at first. They were really like, I don't think I want somebody there. But then once they saw the skills and the tools, and learned from the specialist, and also the assistant teachers also tremendously appreciated the specialist working in the classroom. Once they saw that, and everybody learns from each other, the therapists learn, wow, this is so great for kids who I work with, look what Montessori can provide. So it's a win-win for everybody. But people don't, if you haven't been on the journey, you just don't know.
Yeah,
So
you don't have to sell it to me. I mean, I'm
yeah,
basically I have to sell it to the teachers,
right.
basically. Now, anything you can share uh, um, offline, before they look at your website and all that. If there's anything that you think would be helpful, that'd be greatly appreciated. And the last comment I want to make is that it is not unusual. Occasionally, what happens, the child comes into primary class and he is not following directions. He's hitting children, and quote unquote, I mean, behavior problem. You can call it a behavior problem. So what happens? I mean, we have a conversation with the parent. Hey, this child is not working out. I'm sorry, we can't support him. He needs to go elsewhere. Very sad conversation.
Yeah. And hopefully it's, you can start with so the developmental screening tool, if you do universal developmental screening, first of all the children are screened. And so you have an idea of different challenges that the child is going to have. And so you can go ahead and bring those resources in, and sort of, head it off. If you know in your school you have a lot of children with sensory issues or motor issues, or, children with autism are coming in with a whole variety of needs, then you're going to start partnering with specialists who can come in and say, yeah, this child is these behaviors. So behaviors, what are behaviors? Behaviors are a child's reaction to something in the environment that doesn't feel good for them. And so either there's something that's actually physiologically bothering them, or they're being expected to do something that they don't know how to, or they are not exactly sure how to, what to do. They can't do it yet. They don't have the skills. And so it's really important. So the specialist would be able to come in and observe and say, hey, um, I can work with them to help them build the skills they need to do that. And just for the adults in the classroom to understand that, it's okay. The child's not quite there yet, but this is how we can help them get there. And it's all about, it's all about building skills, just like we do with typical kids. The typically developing kids, everything's already set in the teacher's training, the materials and methods and expectations. They're all set for those kids, but that's just, this much of the population. We want to expand that.
Yeah.
But that requires professional development on the part of the teachers to understand that these children are just like the other children, only their needs are a little different because their development is a little different. And it's not their fault. They just need something a little more support in these ways. So,
Thank you.
yeah. And I do want to share, I have to share a Montessori quote before we go for those who are still here. So this is the work that Dr. Montessori envisioned way back at the very beginning when she first, when she was much closer to the 10 years she spent working with children with disabilities. She had this intuition. She wrote in a book in 1913. Thanks to the system of compulsory education, it gathers to itself every living human being of both sexes and every social caste, typically and atypically developing, and it retains them there throughout a most important period of growth. This is the field, therefore, in which the culture of the human race can really and practically be undertaken, and a joint labor of physician and teacher will sow the seed of a future human hygiene adapted to achieve perfection in man, both as a species and as a social unit. So that's on our website. We have a lot. I guess the fastest thing is to maybe you look through the website and see what you think your teachers would benefit most from knowing about, and then giving them a walkthrough at a meeting, and letting them know about our courses, and hopefully we'll see some of them. We'll see you. Maybe it's you first, and then you'll be able to encourage them more, start providing them resources. And we do talk a lot about Dr. Montessori's early work, and the history of her methods and her discoveries, and how this is part of her work. This unfortunately was lost when she died because she's the medical part. And her training, the training she developed, she never got to actually create the White Cross, which is where her Montessori teachers would get the additional medical training they needed to bring back that medical piece. So, okay.
I'll take a look at your website. It's called Montessori for Inclusion, right?
Yes, yes. And you'll be sent out, we'll send out the link for the AMI USA position statement on inclusion and educational equity. It's fantastic. And also we'll send you a link to the ASQ study, which is developmental screening. So they did the research to find out, is it helpful to Montessori guides to know to implement this developmental screening? And they have actual data to prove that Montessorians who did that found that it was tremendously helpful, and it helped them talk to parents, which is, you were saying how difficult that conversation is. It is absolutely difficult, and this tool can be very useful in sharing information, because it's a tool that is standardized, and so you will have actual data. It's not just, parents, they hear the teachers and think, well, they're just a teacher. So,
Yeah.
Or they don't like my kid. So,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
So,
True.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
It's wonderful
for
being here
coming.
with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine and Barbara. I think the work that you're doing is really important. And thank you, Wally, for your discussion. We will be back next week talking about a Montessori perspective on sleep in the first 6 years. So we hope to see you then.
Oh, nice topic. You always have such great topics.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a
All
great
right.
day.
Take
Thank you.
care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.